and all is still go as we monitor our status for it. Good luck and Godspeed.
Have you ever had a premonition, a feeling that something dreadful was about to happen?
No, Mother, I have not been drinking.
Do you happen to have a pair of birds that are just friendly?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
I have to go back into the past once more, just once more.
This is HitchPod, a podcast counting down the 20 best movies of the wonderful 20th century director Alfred Hitchcock. In this podcast, we rewatch a Hitchcock movie and then we talk about it. I'm Dan Lipke and I'm denying that I've ever strangled a chicken.
And I'm Kat Jones and I'm handing you books tied together with crime scene evidence because this time around we're rewatching the 10th best Hitchcock movie as voted on by our listeners, and that would be Rope from 1948.
Yes, so what happened in 1948?
1948. So the UN made their Declaration of Human Rights and established the World Health Organization. So this is post-war. Let's get the world working together.
Yeah. So I think after World War I, they created like the League of Nations, which was kind of a prototype United Nations, and then that didn't work because they went straight into World War II.
And also that turned into some kind of superhero superhero franchise.
It did.
Excellent. Yep.
Yeah. So the second time around, they went for the United Nations, and that seems to have stuck around for a while. So
at least until the next World War.
Exactly. Yes. Another thing that happened in 1948, we had Polaroid cameras going on sale. So this was the exciting new technology where you could take a photo and then see it instantly.
Yeah.
So imagine that, kids. Imagine being able to take a photo and see what it was straight away, as opposed to taking it down and getting it developed and waiting for the chemist to give it back. Yes.
Insane. And also, I feel like Alfred Hitchcock would have been an early adopter of the Polaroid, don't you think?
I imagine so.
And probably taking selfies before selfies became a thing.
I love the idea of Hitchcock just holding out with the big long arm, just trying to get him and Alma in the frame, going click, and then shaking the thing as it came out to get it to dry, and
that's right,
seeing what the photo looked like.
Yep. What an invention. And if they'd invented it, just a year earlier, it might have made it into Rope as a plot point or an object.
Hopefully.
So the most popular book in the US in 1948 was The Big Fisherman. And does this sound biblical to you? Anyway, it was by Lloyd C. Douglas, set 20 years before Jesus started preaching. This was about an arranged marriage uniting a Jewish and Arab kingdom.
Ah, there you go.
So biblical stories were fashionable, weren't they, in 1948?
Yeah. We also had over in the world of science, we had cosmologists starting to hypothesize about the Big Bang Theory. And I mean, not the TV show, of course, the literal theory about, how the universe began with a big explosion of things and how the universe was expanding as a result.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Cosmologists. They don't study cosmetics?
No, not as much as they should anyway.
No. Okay, well, the biggest song of that year, wait for it because I love this song.
I knew you would.
Buttons and Bows by Dinah Shore. If you haven't heard it, put it into Spotify.
Are you going to sing us a verse?
No, I'm definitely not going to sing anything. And it is worth listening to because it's quite something. And I guess it talks a lot about the fashion of the era.
Okay. Someone who didn't have much fashion was Albert the rhesus monkey, who became the first primate in space. He was chucked in a rocket, sent up there, and presumably died up there.
We don't know. We don't know what happened.
Don't know
to
what
him.
happened. He could have come back super intelligent.
I'm sure he was completely fine, girls and boys.
Yes.
We also had Harry Truman beating Thomas Dewey in the 1948 US presidential election. Apparently, that was a bit of an upset, and the newspapers had already printed the reverse that Dewey defeats Truman.
Yes. And because we also have this new information source for historical years in The Onion's Guide to Our Dumb Century, this is what The Onion had to say in 1948. They had a big front page dated November the 9th, 1948, and they had a tiny correction in the bottom right corner of the front page, and the correction read, The Onion erroneously reported that the other guy had defeated What's-His-Face in the 1948 presidential election. In fact, What's-His-Face defeated the other guy. The Onion regrets the error. So
easy to make when they're so similar. And of course, 1948 saw the release of Rope.
And you're about to recap Rope for us, aren't you?
Yes, we are. So, Rope. We start with Brandon, John Dahl and Philip Farley Granger in their penthouse apartment. Beautiful apartment, but they're strangling David, their former classmate, straight into the action. No real reason for doing so. particularly Brandon, they just want to commit the perfect murder.
Yes.
Anyway, they dump David's body in a wooden trunk and immediately seem to start hosting a dinner party. The guests include all of David's relatives.
Yes.
His fiancée, Janet, Joan Chandler plays Janet, David's father and an auntie, David's former best friend, and so this is also Janet's ex-boyfriend, Kenneth. So they're all related. And then Jimmy Stewart comes in, not in his own, not playing himself.
No.
Although that would have been good too.
Would have been great.
He's in the role of Rupert, and that's Brandon's former housemaster, and he kind of idolises.
Yeah, and I think he was also David's former housemaster as well. Like
Yes.
they were all in the same school
There
together.
could have been some improper relationships there
have been.
too. Who knows? They also get their housekeeper, Mrs. Wilson, to move all their party food onto the trunk. She puts a nice tablecloth on first, and so that's going to serve as the buffet table. You can imagine this trunk is quite big.
Yeah, so she's got candles there and the food, yes.
Anyway, Brandon's pretty pleased about this. He's pretty pleased about the murder too. He tries to steer Rupert into some kind of conversation about the rights of the intellectually superior to commit murder.
Yes.
Which is very distasteful post-war. Anyway, Philip is not so happy about it, and he's stressing out. He's the anxious one of the couple, and he thinks they're going to be caught. Anyway, there's a bit of foreshadowing for him as the night moves on, and the night moves on in real time, which is wonderful.
Real-ish, right? There's but close enough, yeah.
Close enough. It's
It's a short party.
That's right. The other guests start to get worried about David. He's supposed to be there.
Yep.
Anyway, Rupert grows increasingly suspicious. He doesn't really say anything.
No.
But you can tell he is suspicious. Philip gets more and more agitated,
Yep.
Particularly when reference is made to strangling. Apparently he's previously strangled a chicken. There's some denial of this.
Yes.
There's a farm involved.
Yep.
And he freaks out a bit. Anyway, Brandon does not care. He's trying to be mischievous, rekindling Janet and Kenneth's romance. He's loving all of that. And nobody can track down David, though. So the party comes to a bit of a premature end because David hasn't turned up. David's father leaves. He's got some books Brandon has loaned him, and this is conveniently tied together with a strangling rope.
Yep, Brandon doesn't care. Here's some evidence. I'm just going to tie these books together.
And he doesn't care how freaked out Philip gets.
Yep.
So on the way out, Mrs. Wilson, the housekeeper, accidentally gives Rupert David's monogrammed hat. It's conveniently monogrammed, has a nice piece of evidence, and it's in the closet. So Rupert returns shortly afterwards to, I suppose, return the hat and get his own hat back.
Yeah.
And
I think he put the hat back away. He pretends that he's lost his cigarette case or cigarette
That's
lighter or
right.
something, yeah.
Yep.
He comes
So
up with a reason to come back.
He doesn't tell anyone. So Rupert returns soon afterwards to confront Brandon and Philip after noticing the hat. And Brandon is happy to engage in this kind of, I think we identified it in our last podcast, this Columbo-esque sort of battle of wits.
Yep.
But Philip's too drunk. He's been drinking the whole time and he flips out. Somehow, Rupert gets hold of Brandon's gun and opens the trunk, and inside he finds David's body.
Yes.
And Rupert is upset, not just at David's murder, but also that theorising about the superiority and inferiority might have encouraged Brandon and Philip.
Which it did.
It did,
Yep.
and he feels a bit responsible, rightly so. He fires a few shots out of the window to attract attention, and then the three of them wait for the police to arrive. So that is the final scene. And if
Yes.
you want a less rapid and more in-depth recap and another discussion of the movie, you can have a check out of our Season 1 discussion of Rope. It's currently out from behind the paywall, and it's on the main feed. So go have a listen to that.
Are you tired of the same old picnic fare? Ready to add some sizzle to your outdoor dining experience? Look no further than Chicken Innuendo. Legs, breasts and thighs, too sensational to ignore. It starts with a bucket of chicken innuendo. It ends with lips, fingers, and all other extremities being licked. Catch a thief, catch a lover with chicken innuendo. All right, so this is where I do my 3 jokes and a limerick on the movie, and Kat will give me the thumbs up or thumbs down. You may spot a theme in these jokes. Where does a tree hide the body of somebody it knew from school who it murdered to prove its intellectual superiority?
In its trunk.
Correct. Where does an American car hide the body of somebody it knew from school who it murdered to prove its intellectual superiority?
In its trunk.
And where does an elephant hide the body of somebody it knew from school who it murdered to prove its intellectual superiority?
In its trunk. No, I knew this wasn't going to be right.
No, that's a trick question. Elephants don't go to school. You're thinking of fish.
Oh my God, that's great. So is that one joke?
No, that's all three.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, in that case, I'll have to give you. I was going to give you thumbs down for the first two, but I'm actually going to give you a thumbs up for all three, just because of the neat conclusion there, which I knew was coming.
It's a very classical joke structure.
It's a classic structure.
Yes,
Wonderful.
rule of threes.
Yep.
All right, so I'll give you the limerick instead. Let's see how I go with this one. Poor David, all strangled and roped, not the party for which he had hoped. An awkward get-together, making him question quite whether he and Janet should have simply eloped.
Oh, that's a very good limerick. I think that's accurate, and it's a good synopsis of David's views on the entire movie, I imagine.
Which is a very brief viewpoint of David in the movie.
Yes, I think we said last time he still got top billing, even though he was only in the movie for 10 seconds. In fact, even at the end, when the body is discovered, we still do not see David again.
No, poor David.
Yeah.
So what did we think of this movie on the rewatch?
Well, this was your favourite movie.
It was my favourite.
This is the top of all 52 Hitchcock movies for Dan. So what do you think? Is it remaining at the top?
I think don't think I enjoyed it quite as much on the second time through. I think the first time through there's this you can't recapture the kind of the lack of knowledge of what's actually going to happen here. When are they going to find it? Are they going to find it? So there's all that tension which isn't never quite there the second time through.
Yep.
And I think losing that makes it not quite as enjoyable the second time through. I still liked it a lot. I thought it was a great fun and a very good movie. I really like it. It will probably still rank number one on my rewatch list for now.
Yep.
But I do suspect that once some of the bigger guns come through for a rewatch, that it might slip out of that number one spot. But
we will be ranking them a little bit later. So that's really interesting. So what that means is you could probably rank all the Hitchcock movies on a first watch. How good are they on a first watch? I mean, Psycho would be, obviously it's good anyway, but it would be really high on the first watch for the same reason that the twists are only twists the first time around.
Yes.
This one, of course, is more of a suspense than a twist, but still I think you'd rank it higher on a first watch. But as far as a classic that you want to watch over and over and over again, maybe not as high.
Maybe not. Yeah. That's certainly how I'm feeling at the moment. Yeah.
Well, in contrast, I feel like, because I rank this 21,
you were much lower
I think,
on it, yeah.
I think it'll be jumping up my rankings.
Okay.
Now, that may not eventuate in this list because, of course, there were other things in between, but because we're up to the top 10 now, right?
Yep.
So, but it will definitely be higher than 21.
Well, it'll certainly be higher on this list, right?
Yes, because there's only 20. But if I was re-ranking everything, it would be higher because I really enjoyed this one. Okay. And this might be my third or fourth watch of Rope. I'm not sure what I'm up to now, but I liked it. And the reason I liked it more this time is that I really enjoyed Brandon's humour. And we're going to get into that a little bit more on this further into the podcast.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, let's go through some of the scenes and discuss them in depth. So we usually take the most famous scene and ask whether it was overrated. And what do we decide the most famous scene of Rope was?
Well, it's the first scene and the last scene. Yeah. It's the entire scene because it's all supposed to be one scene. Yes. And I think that's what's overrated. The idea that this all-in-one scene, the continuous take with no cuts, with not inconsequential cuts, that gimmick, I think, is overrated. Yeah. It's not what this movie's about. And the movie's about is so much better than just that one thing, which is always mentioned in tedious detail about how Rope, that's the movie with the continuous shots. It's like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, it is a neat trick and it's fun, but it's definitely more than just that one gimmick. I mean, there've been a few other movies which we mentioned in our previous episode that have a similar gimmick. And it's quite entertaining to go, isn't that clever? But it definitely is more important or more entertaining than just that one gimmick.
And also that one gimmick of the continuous scene is far more interesting when it's a first-person perspective. And we didn't have that here. Yeah. We've definitely got an omniscient or multi-person perspective in this. Well, we've really got two main narrators. We've got Philip and Brandon, I guess, and Rupert to some degree. But I think it's far more interesting in what was that war movie that used
1917?
I mean, I can't remember if it followed one person or not.
Pretty much did, he was running, he had to take a message, deliver it to some other end of whatever country he was in.
I really like that. I like that when it's a continuous scene and it's a first-person perspective. I think it's a good way of taking something from a book to a movie. But anyway, we think that's overrated, and that takes us to underrated, right? Is there anything underrated? And there is a scene that we both love the first time around and the second and every time.
Yeah. And it is one of the more famous scenes of the movie, but we're still going to argue it's still underrated because it's the scene where we watch the housekeeper Mrs. Wilson slowly clean up the food and the candles and the plates and the tablecloth from the top of the chest. And you can't take your eyes off it. It's like, my God, she's going to open this chest to put everything away and she's going to find the body. And it's like, even the second time around, I said I love the suspense of the first time and it couldn't quite recapture that the second time. This was still great the second time around. It's so good.
And it's really hard to concentrate on anything else in frame. And there are voices out of frame, but there are things in frame, but actually you can't take your eyes off the chest. It's so clever. It's one of Hitchcock's all-time greatest ever scenes. I mean, there's some others that you immediately spring to mind, like the moment the car starts to sink in Psycho and then stops. Like there's some really fabulous, I mean, the shower scene, but there's some fabulous scenes even in the duller movies. And this, though, is incredible. This is the perfect suspense scene where the audience knows a lot more than most of the characters, or really any of the characters. And that's the suspense. That's the bomb under the table that Hitchcock is well known for. We know the body's in the chest. We know that what she's going to do next because she brings the books over and the books belong in the chest. And so it is just this classic suspense rather than thriller.
And the other thing is, because of the real-time gimmick, which we discussed earlier, there are no cuts to shorten the tension. We are watching her in real time very slowly remove item after item from the top of the table. And we could see her, the way the shot's framed, we could see her walking to the next room, slowly coming back. Like it's just perfect suspense. It's a great scene.
And all the while, everyone else just chatting. The murderer's not seeming to notice even until the last minute. I mean, it was bad enough when she was clearing up, but it definitely goes up a notch when, oh my God, the books are about to be put away. And that audience being implicated as well. The fact that, we, along with the murderers, know what's going to happen. We can't save David. We can't save David or even dob in the murderers. So that makes the suspense even more acute. So it's just really incredible.
Over on Patreon, we've been rewatching some other movies after Hitchcock's death in 1980 and looking at them through a Hitchcock lens. That's kind of what we do over there. And we've just released our discussion on Election, which was directed by Alexander Payne and starring Reese Witherspoon and Matthew Broderick. And we both enjoyed that, didn't we?
Yeah, Election's a great movie.
Yes. So next up, we're going to be watching Little Miss Sunshine, another great movie, and talking about that. And if you'd like to listen to us talk about those movies, or there's a back catalogue of, dozens of movies now, you can become a patron of HitchPod via patreon.com/HitchPod. And for just $2 a month, you get access to not just that movie, but our discussions of every Hitchcock movie. All 54 of them, 52 of them, 52 plus a couple of little ones, little
and some other
movies
that Hitchcock could have directed because they're very similar in genre.
So lots of content behind the paywall that for just a couple of bucks you can get access to all of it. So have a think about that. So let's go through what our listeners thought of Rope. Let's just go through some of the stats from the original poll that we took. So it was this one was 10th, top 10. So its highest ranking was first. That was probably me. I think I voted in the poll.
Yes.
Maybe I did. But regardless, I would have. If I did vote, I would have been
I'm not
first.
surprised if other people have it as number one.
Its lowest ranking was 20th. Nobody ranked it lower than 20th. Except for
always
you.
made it into the top 20.
So
I'm
maybe
the
you
only one.
didn't rank it.
That just goes to show my original rankings probably isn't right.
Yeah. The percentage of people who had it in the top 20, you would therefore think was 100%, but it's not quite because not everybody ranked it. So some people hadn't watched it, so it didn't actually
make it in there.
Didn't get ranked at all. So 87% of people ranked it. The percentage of people out in the top 10, even 50%, 50-50. And differences between the patrons and the non-patrons. It would have been number 11, would have been just outside the top 10, except for the patrons getting extra voting power to push it into the top 10.
Excellent.
Yes. So let's go through those Twitter polls. The favourite male character, who was it?
Brandon.
No, it wasn't Brandon. It was Rupert. Rupert got 54%. I'm a bit surprised for that too. I consider Rupert a pretty bland kind of character.
Yes, I don't think it was Jimmy Stewart's best role, but I suppose he's
fine,
clever and interesting, and he had some good lines.
Yeah, he's fine. But Brandon steals the show for my money.
Yeah.
What about the favourite female character?
Oh, that has to be Mrs. Wilson.
Yeah, Mrs. Wilson smashes it. 75%.
Yeah.
Question 3 was, what do you keep in your antique wooden chest during dinner parties? And there were three options here.
I would have thought that would be, for me, that would be board games.
Well, that was an option.
Was it?
Yeah, so we had dead bodies, spare plates, board games, or all of the above.
Right.
And what do you think got the most votes?
Dead bodies.
No, all of the above.
Oh, that's
So
great.
some dark people answering our Twitter polls.
Well, they must have massive chests if they can fit all that shit in
I think
there.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
Question 4 was, are you living your life in one single shot?
Answer,
So
yes.
answers were yes, no, or no, so edit out this poll. So yes got 60% of the votes.
That's great. Not only is my life in one single shot, it's also from my first person
Yes.
perspective.
Yep. Yes. And we did have some people, because we did also asked what their favourite scenes were. And we had Joe on Twitter. He replied. And Joe said that Rupert is the Shaggy of crime fiction, which is a reference to Shaggy's song, It Wasn't Me.
Okay.
And
Yep.
he had a little animated GIF down below of Shaggy singing that.
Yep.
And Joe points out that once Rupert, uncovers the murder, he denies that he is in any way culpable or responsible for Brandon and Rupert's actions. He taught them this Nietzschean philosophy as young boys without the caveats as why it was wrong.
Aha.
Exactly right.
Yes. And just a really neat metaphor on some events of not that many years earlier.
Very recent events, yeah.
Goodness me. That really makes it quite pointed, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. We had Nonna from Twitter, and Nonna said their favourite scene was when Jimmy Stewart figures it out and just stares in astonishment and utter disbelief. So there you go.
Yeah.
So let's go through our rankings again. We've kind of already covered this. For now in the rewatch, it is still my number one. It's
Yes,
still
right.
number one ahead of To Catch a Thief. Only just. I think To Catch a Thief is very good too.
Yes.
And then The Lady Vanishes, Young and Innocent, etc. Where are you re-ranking it?
Well, my top 4 stay the same. The Lady Vanishes, 39 Steps, To Catch a Thief, Young and Innocent. And then Rope comes in at number 5. Now, that's the same order as I had before, but it jumps up for me when I looked at my full rankings. It jumps up from 21 to perhaps even 12.
Okay.
So it's going up a long way, but it still remains in the same order. So it's number 5 at the moment.
At the moment, okay.
Out of our top 20.
All right. So now it's time to do a deep dive into a scene, and we're about to play some audio of that scene.
I'll go and call.
Kenneth, there's too much air in your glass.
Oh, mine's fine, thanks.
Would you mind taking this into Janet?
Sure. Why?
No particular reason. It's hers. I thought you'd like to take it into her. She's in the bedroom telephoning.
Then you'd like David to walk in.
Oh, no, that'd be too much of a shock.
All right, so that's a shorter scene than we usually cover, but that's only because it's just kind of one example of the kind of fun dialogue that
Yeah.
Brandon's working on, right?
It is the reason why it's jumping up in the rankings for me, that reminder about how clever the double meanings are that are designed purely for the audience to have fun with, not just the characters.
Yeah, so as a character in the story, we interpret this as like he's a psychopath, he's enjoying the game of giving out these clues as to what's happened to David, and that he likes the feeling that he's the smartest person in the room. He likes knowing things that other people don't. It's establishing that as his basically his entire identity, right?
Yeah, that's right. And he's cracking jokes for Philip's benefit.
Well, is it for Philip's benefit?
Yeah. Well, it's for his own benefit, but he thinks he's amusing Philip, but he's really not, or he's really delighted that he's not amusing Philip, but he's upsetting him.
I don't think he wants to delight Philip at all. He's taking great delight in torturing Philip. So, which kind of establishes yet again that Philip, it's coded in a way that got through the 1948 census, but they're clearly lovers. They're clearly a couple, and he doesn't care. He's torturing him by he knows how stressed out he is, and Brandon doesn't care. I like making these jokes, and if that makes you freak out, that's entertaining to me because I'm a psychopath.
He's a psychopath. And the one we played, that'd be too much of a shock, is just such a wonderful image of David as a zombie or whatever walking in.
Yeah. So we got another example here that I'll play
that
as well.
one.
Mrs. Wilson, champagne.
Oh, it isn't someone's birthday, is it?
Don't look so worried, Kenneth. It's really almost the opposite.
So this is so wonderful as well. He's in full hearing of Philip, and he really is such a sociopath that he's really just happy with this double meaning, and it's quite the reverse.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And Philip can't do anything about it, right? Philip's got no power at all. He can't say stop making these jokes because that would acknowledge that they're jokes, which acknowledges that there's some second meaning to them, which establishes that David has been murdered.
Yeah.
So it's very good. And that's just kind of within the character. And then you kind of pull out from a dramatic perspective, or us as an audience, and how it works to drag us into Brandon's orbit.
Yeah, it makes us really an accomplice of Brandon because we know as much as he does. And if we laugh at it, then are we as bad as him?
Yeah.
We find the jokes kind of funny, but they're really not. He's joking about people that he's just murdered.
Yeah.
So it's,
and we're
it's
the
incredible.
only other ones who get the jokes. Like Brandon, Philip, and us, the audience, we're the only ones who understand the jokes.
Yeah.
And if we find them amusing, then we're on Brandon's side. We're not on Philip's side.
And again, when when Hitchcock is trying to get us close to perhaps the discovery of the body, and we're no, don't discover it. That's again making us accomplices as well. So there's all so many ways that he's being really clever and playing with the emotions of the audience.
Yeah, and it's not a great thing to be associated with a murderous psychopath. So and that's where Hitchcock's dragging it to.
So when Mrs. Wilson is cleaning up the trunk, you've got a bit of a theory about Brandon because Brandon only comes in right at the end, doesn't he, of that scene?
Yeah, so I've got a theory that Brandon is out of shot the entire time.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on, and that makes us anxious because we see Mrs. Wilson getting closer and closer to discovering the body, and we assume that Brandon's not seeing this. We don't see him. He's done nothing to stop her from doing this.
Yeah.
But at the very last moment, we discover that Brandon is completely aware of what's going on because he swoops in at the last second to prevent her from opening the trunk. And I have a theory that, in a sense, this is Brandon almost playing a prank on us because he was aware of what Mrs. Wilson was doing. I don't think he just happened to notice at the very last second.
Yep.
He's let us worry about it. We have become Philip in this moment. We are anxious and stressed that the murder will be discovered.
That's so great.
And Brandon has been torturing us the exact same way he's been torturing Philip the entire time. So Hitch had previously kind of made us complicit with Brandon's psychopathy because he's made us laugh at all his jokes, and now he's making us suffer because of it as well. I find that incredibly brilliant. I think
It's very
that
clever.
makes this an absolutely masterful scene.
Yeah, that's a great take. I'm sure that's what Brandon's doing too,
Yep.
isn't it? Leaving it to the last minute. So it's wonderful.
Your Honor, this is an armed robbery, and that would be a minimum amount of bail in a case of this type.
The request is denied, Counselor.
Put him downstairs, officer.
Introducing PayPalibi. Next time you're wrongly accused of a crime, don't waste time with expensive lawyers and impossible searches for justice. Instead, PayPalibi it. Receive an ironclad alibi for your whereabouts with all the convenience of one PayPal payment. PayPalibi. Innocence is one click away.
So Hitchcock liked to redo ideas from his own movies. So, of course, he remade a few of them and refreshed some of them. So let's assume he's having another look at Rope 76 years later.
Yep.
What would he change if he was around to remake Rope?
Well, one of the first things we like to do now, thanks to Freddie on Patreon suggesting it, is using ChatGPT to come up with alternative titles for us. Got to freshen it up. You can't just get away with Rope these days, surely. Yep. So some alternative options for Rope, and I'll admit that I put one of my own in here. See if you can guess which one I entered, and you could tell me which ones are dreadful and which ones are good.
Yep.
So Twisted Ties.
Terrible.
Brandon's Bad Beliefs.
That is definitely ChatGPT, and it's terrible.
Dinner Party of Death.
No, that's pretty bad too. I'm sure that's ChatGPT, but that's better.
All right. Guess who's not coming to dinner?
I reckon that one's yours.
That is fine.
I can spot yours a mile off. That's good. Do you have any others?
No, that's it.
I was trying to just come up with my own and pretend I was ChatGPT. So I thought ChatGPT always gives you titles with a colon, right?
Yes, yeah. I think I've told it now to stop doing colons.
Right. Do you know what? Doesn't matter how many times I tell it to not do a colon, it always does. Anyway, I thought it might be the Strangler, colon, and the chest. And then the other one I came up with was Unravelled.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Anyway,
Very
maybe
good.
some of these can be reused when we do our sequels.
Yes. So what other things could Hitchcock do with this remake?
I mean, I guess he's going to do something with the one-shot gimmick. Is he going to film it on an iPhone?
He could, yeah. Yeah, you could do that with an iPhone.
Yeah.
I think if he does want to stick with the one-shot gimmick, which he probably does, then it's much easier to do now. You don't have to do the zoom in and out of the actor's back. You got digital editing to do that. You bloody Birdman in 1917. Like 1917, he's running through an entire war
That's
zone.
right.
Yeah.
They're doing multiple shots and they just seamlessly put them together to make them look like a single shot. So he would have had a lot of smart editors to do that.
Yeah. I also think he could ramp up the tension between Brandon, Rupert, and Philip.
Mm-hmm.
The one of the weakest points I find in the original story is the way that Rupert just kind of stumbles onto the monogrammed hat. He's like
it's a bit
literally given
convenient.
the clue.
Yeah, that's right.
So I think it'd be better if he, we do go full Columbo. Like he has some flash of insight that like some clue is dropped while Brandon's making his stupid jokes. Rupert actually works something out, and then he solves the crime. I think he should. Yeah, it should showcase his intelligence more. I think that would make it stronger.
And you could get a little bit more dramatic tension there if he does that while the family's still there, and so he's questioning Brandon but not giving away the fact that David's dead because the father's there. I think that would be really clever.
That's fun. Yeah. That's fun if they're having at one level of conversation, this kind of battle of wits, and Brandon suspects Rupert's onto him, and Rupert suspects that Brandon did it, and poor old Philip's in the background, a blithering mess.
Yeah. Because of course Brandon would think that Rupert's worked it out, but he's approving of it. That would be a really nice layer as well. Yeah. I also think that the modern movie might be two women. You might mix it up and make it two women.
Yep.
So that's a possibility as well.
Yep.
And so we're redoing this with some modern actors. We always try and come up with the modern actors, and of course Florence Pugh is always in our movie remakes, and she's the only one she can really play is Janet, right? She's she can't be Mrs. Wilson, so she's Janet. Or if the murderers were female, I'm also going with Emma Stone, maybe as one of the murderers. I'm not sure which one's a psychopath, and Anya Taylor-Joy from Queen's Gambit.
Oh, she's more of a psychopath. I think
she's the psychopath perhaps, and Emma Stone is the Philip in this scenario.
I think so.
So they're the ones that I'm casting for the women.
Yes.
What about for, let's just say it's two men.
Yep.
Who are we casting?
Well, I had the idea that perhaps we could reunite Jesse Eisenberg and Andrew Garfield from The Social Network because they, as Brandon and Philip, because I'm not entirely convinced that Mark Zuckerberg has never killed a man and stuffed him in a chest. On legal advice, I just want to confirm that legally that is a joke. Don't come after me, Mark Zuckerberg. That's a joke. That's a joke. Don't poke me on Facebook.
I mean, you wouldn't even know if Mark Zuckerberg poked you on Facebook because you never log in, do you?
That's true. Yeah. Anyway, correct. He's probably listening to this. Sorry, Mark.
Well, this is quite startling that you've decided on Jesse Eisenberg and Andrew Garfield, and we know they've been in more than one movie together, haven't they?
I'm not sure. They were definitely in The Social Network, playing almost the exact same relationship. So
okay, which one's a psychopath then?
Jesse Eisenberg is Mark Zuckerberg, right. So therefore the
psychopath, right? Because I asked ChatGPT who to cast in this, and amazingly, ChatGPT also suggested Andrew Garfield.
Really?
Andrew Garfield as Brandon.
Oh.
And Jesse Eisenberg as Philip.
Well, that's just AI gone wrong.
That's crazy.
That's Zuckerberg hacking into it and giving the wrong answers.
Yes.
I think, because that's definitely the wrong way around. Jesse Eisenberg has played like Lex Luthor. He's played psychopaths many times.
Well, I'm very suspicious now that we've used ChatGPT too many times and your brain is now integrated somehow with this AI.
Oh, let's hope not. What about Rupert?
Oh, I don't know. Who would be Rupert? I don't know.
I was thinking maybe Christian Bale as Rupert, perhaps channeling like an older Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. So he's also played this kind of psychopath. You could believe that Patrick Bateman might believe in killing people he deems inferior.
Yes.
But Christian Bale is also Batman, so he would never do that. So he's got both aspects, unlike poor old Brandon.
Yeah, that's right. And I didn't come up with anyone for Mrs. Wilson. We don't have to cast everyone here. The casting agent will do that. But I thought Mrs. Atwater, it'd be nice to see someone like Tilda Swinton playing Mrs. Atwater, maybe Kate Blanchett. They're getting old enough now to play the alto in these arrangements.
Yes. All right. What about a sequel to Rope? What could we do for a sequel?
Well, at the end of Rope, we know that the family will go off together to find David, which presumably they don't. And Kenneth and Janet go off together. Yes. So they are presumably getting back together, and then that's some kind of TV show, right?
Yeah, it's a zany rom-com, I think. Yeah. Maybe she agrees to marry him as long as he never mentions David's murder or Rope ever again. And Kenneth, because he's a bumbling idiot, just keeps mentioning them, and hilarity ensues. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe ropes appear in every episode. There's ropes that come up, and every single time there's some kind of crazy.
I did have a ChatGPT title for this romantic comedy sequel.
Oh, can I guess it first?
Yep.
I reckon it's Enough Rope.
No, it's that's not a bad one though. ChatGPT said Tying the Knot.
Oh, that's even better. Yeah. That's great. Oh, we've got to have these sequels now. Yeah. There's so many puns we could come into. Okay. What about the prequel though?
Oh, well, I had an idea for a prequel. I thought maybe we could go into some kind of small town which has like this once thriving rope factory, which is a symbol of community pride, and it's on the brink of closure.
Oh, yeah.
And the factory's employees are uncertain, and the town's identity is doomed, and it's all this dramatic, people losing their jobs, depression era.
Yeah.
And the final montage scene, we follow the final piece of rope from the factory floor to the rope warehouse and rope store, and the final shot is being purchased by Brandon.
Oh my goodness, it's very dark.
Rope-centric prequel to Rope.
Excellent. Oh my goodness, that's very startling.
Yes. What about the 8-part TV show? What minor character could get their own show?
Well, we need to see a little bit more of Mrs. Wilson, don't we? So I feel like she's the one getting the TV show. She needs a new job.
Yeah,
definitely. So she's going to be cast as someone like Lucille Ball maybe played her in the 1960s.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I like the idea of her starting a new housekeeping job and then inevitably stumbling onto the dreadful crimes and secrets of the household and each week.
A little bit like The Help, that book.
Well, I was thinking more Murder, She Wrote, Murder, She Mopped or something.
Oh,
she just shows up and discovers it and sends them off to jail, and then she has to go find a new family to housekeep for.
Yes, the incentive there is not to uncover the murder, isn't it?
But she can't help it. She's such a good cleaner. She keeps finding all these things.
Yeah, she only has to open a chest in every place she goes to, right?
Yes. So what should we watch next if you enjoy movies like Rope?
Well, according to Google, if you enjoy movies like Rope, there are a couple of possibilities here, 2 from 1946 and 1 from 1959. So old-fashioned, but worth a look. So the first one is The Spiral Staircase. And this one is Helen, a speech-impaired caregiver, is implored by her bedridden mistress to leave her mansion filled with antisocial individuals when a series of murders occur in the neighbourhood.
Okay.
So that is a strange little synopsis there. I don't think I'm going in a hurry to watch that one.
No. We've got Undercurrent from 1946 as well. This is a Katharine Hepburn movie. Anne Hamilton marries Alan Garraway, an industrialist, after being in love for a short while. Shortly, she starts suspecting her husband to be the murderer of his own brother, Michael.
Huh.
So that sounds more like Suspicion, really. It's like getting
sounds
married
Sounds a bit like Hitchcock. But anyway, Compulsion is the next one. Good title. This one stars Orson Welles too.
Yep.
And this one could almost be a sequel to Rope, I reckon.
Yeah.
So Judd and Artie, 2 law school geniuses, plan to execute a perfect crime, but they're caught and they go on trial.
This is definitely the sequel to Rope. Yeah. I think Orson Welles in that one is the defense attorney or something.
Right. Okay.
So you imagine Orson Welles with the big booming voice. Enjoying defending these 2 lunatics. And of course, if you didn't like Rope, then you probably shouldn't watch any of those movies.
No.
But what should you watch next month?
Next month will be this is
brace yourself.
pains me. Yeah, brace yourself. Next month we traditionally do a face-off between Rope and the movie that beats it. So the movie that got the Best Picture Oscar in that year. That movie was Hamlet.
Yes,
directed by and starring
and
Laurence,
I think screenwritten by as well.
Oh God, was it Laurence Olivier? Based on a story by an up-and-coming screenwriter called William Shakespeare.
There you go. Yes.
Okay, now here I'm calling it our worst idea ever was to watch the Best Picture winners from the years that Hitch didn't get it. I 100% regret it. I feel like we should go off this idea, but I'm worried that there'll be a good one there. So I'm also concerned that we're going off this idea now for the top 10.
I have looked ahead to what next one is, and I think next one is a good one.
Oh,
so,
I hope so.
So
because I was about to say we should have actually just gone to Google and got a better recommendation than we got from the Academy.
Yes.
They all look terrible. Anyway, it's still worth
Maybe
listening.
That's a lesson about that we shouldn't stress too much about Hitchcock not getting an Oscar because it means his movies are actually good.
It's a massive lesson. It's if he got an award, it meant the movie was dreadful.
Yep.
And Rebecca accepted. So I think that it just makes it more fun kind of to talk about dreadful movies. So it has been a disaster. But I'm not looking forward to watching Hamlet. I have not watched it before. I don't like it. I don't like the play. So anyway, we'll go through all the major categories and see Best Picture, Best Actor, so on. And was Rope robbed? Yes.
Yes. I will also do Rope in iambic pentameter. for the entirety. I will redo Rope as a Shakespearean drama.
Incredible.
Yeah. But until then, I am Dan Lipke, slowly and methodically clearing the microphones off this antique wooden chest.
Oh, and I'm Kat Jones. I'm handing you an incriminatingly incorrect hat. Thank you for listening to HitchPod. Please come and talk to us on Twitter at HitchPod Tweets or on Facebook by searching for HitchPod. And you can also email us directly at feedback@hitchpodonline.com. And if you want more Hitchcock content, please consider becoming a HitchPod supporter. Just go to patreon.com/HitchPod. And for as little as $2 a month, you can get access to our Season 1 coverage of every single Hitchcock movie, as well as bonus episodes on Hitchcock-esque movies. Invitations also to watch live rewatches and much, much more.
I never strangled a chicken in my life.